Welcome back to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds and Juan Daniels got KTG back on the show today. Obviously, if you see the name of the title, listen. Georgia played an ugly game, right? Ugly game. Didn't. Oh, sorry, it says 36. I mean 26. Fat fingered that. So 26-22 win in Como. Um, we got a lot to talk about, folks. This was one of the I think this is probably one of the worst games that we've played in Kirby Smart's tenure. I just do. It was just not pretty, man. It just wasn't. There's no sugarcoating it. Listen, Georgia does come away with the win, right? I'd say with a touchdown with about 4 minutes to go, right? But we're going to recap this. We're going to go pretty in depth on this because there's a lot to take away from it. Listen, all wasn't bad though. All was not bad. There were some good positives to take away from this. So do not get nervous about that, right? Just don't sit there and say that it all, the world's coming to an end. There's some positives to take away. First off, Caleb, welcome back to the show, my man.
Hey, glad to be back always. I love this show. I'm always watching it, so it's always fun to be on it too, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Juan, welcome back from Safe Travels back as well.
What's going on, man? Appreciate it.
Hey, so we're going to start the show with a little bit of a different tone here. Before we do start talking back about Georgia, I want to let Juan talk about his weekend because, in my opinion, I think it was a pretty important weekend for you. Take it away, man. I want to hear this.
Yeah, man, we had a chance to go to Oregon, and I'll tell you what, it was always a bucket list thing of mine to go see an Oregon game. You know, they've got the tradition, they've got the crazy uniforms, but anything that you could imagine about Oregon, it's that much better. The fans, the atmosphere, the crowd, the stadium, everything is absolutely amazing, even if you are on the opposing team. And so we had a lot of fun, and then. Ashton got an opportunity to get in. He actually ran two running plays. The first play, he got 7 yards. And then the second play, he got about 20-something yards and should have scored if the guy would have blocked. However, the guy the safety that came to tackle him, he pretty much stiffed armed him to the ground. So it was actually pretty cool. But, you're kind of, we're kind of struggling a little bit. You're in a sad state of affairs when, Ashton, as the third string quarterback, is the second leading rusher on the team. So, but yeah, it was cool to see him get in. The atmosphere was great. The travel was great. So just really enjoyed my time. It was awesome.
You know what, though? I was sitting there and I watched that run, Juan, and I talked to you about this as soon as I saw it. I was just like, sustain the blocking, and I'd give him 6. Like, give him 6, right? Something that Georgia's not familiar with is bad outside blocking, right? Like, listen. You got to think I guess you could say you're in a blessed situation when you've got the elite blocking on the edge outside there with the receivers. Listen, we got Mitch in here saying he's tuned in. Listen, it's going to be a hot and heavy one, folks. I think we got to give everyone a reality check here, folks. Through the first 3 games, right, Georgia looked like they're unstoppable, right? It got even to a point where people were Death Star, calling us Death Star and all this other stuff. Listen, I don't care. You can't tell me anything at this point to believe that we're that, right? The rat poison has set in. Can the antidote get taken fast enough to make sure that we get back to the form that we were for the first 3 weeks, right? As we see the 60-33 in here saying go dogs. Listen, we're always going to say go dogs. Listen, you're 5-0, right? You fall to second in the AP poll. I'll take that, right? I'll take that because we deserve that. In my opinion, we do not deserve to be the number 1 team because we played like ass Saturday, right? Listen, it's the same thing that happened if you look back to what Bama did, right? Struggle win against Texas. They fall to 2. Georgia has a struggle win against Mizzou. We fall to 2. I'll take it, right? But if you're, Caleb, I think this is something that I think is interesting here. I feel like when we're not number 1, you really start to see a better team. Juan, Caleb, how do y'all feel about that? Is that true? Do y'all notice anything about that? Like, what are y'all's thoughts?
I don't buy into the rankings like that, man. We were number one most of last year, and we cracked everybody's head from when we turned number one into the SEC title. So I think that's rat poison too, man. But some people are superstitious, so I can't. I'm superstitious as well, but I don't really think the rankings mean anything, man. It's just a number. I just think honestly, just Georgia just got overconfident, period, and got to find themselves.
I will say the one thing about rankings, though, they do matter in a sense of positioning, right? Because now, obviously, not the AP per se, but when the actual playoff rankings come out, that's when they really do matter, right?
Yeah, that's what I was
So,
talking about. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. No, so obviously, the AP poll, in my opinion, I don't even know why it exists. It's just there to create revenue for schools, in my opinion. But here, neither here nor there. You moved it to right. We'll see what happens when the playoff right and the playoff committee starts doing their selections, but for the time being, right? I want to take away some of the negatives here. Um, I think the first thing was the lack of execution, right? When you sit there in your first five drives, right? You punt, you lose a fumble, receiver's hands. You you sit there and this is two games now. You started off extremely slow. Kent State was a game where the game was never necessarily in question, right? We struggled a little bit, but it was never in question. This game was a lot different. Okay, this was a lot different. Where with 4 minutes, you technically with 5 minutes, you were still down. You were still losing the ball game with roughly 5 minutes left in the game. You're losing the game, right? To a team, in my opinion, that's one of the worst in the conference. Right? That's just unacceptable. I don't care whether it's Mark Rick, Jim Donnan, that's unacceptable if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. So you have to look at you know being accountable, right? How to fix things, right? You have to trust. If I'm a fan, I have to trust that our coaching staff and our players get it right. I don't want to hear this. Georgia playing down to other. I don't buy into that. You shouldn't. That's not the standard if you're Georgia, right? If you're not, you sit there. 60-33 says it best. The poll is there for Bama fans to say, "Look at me." That's it at this stage of the season. I mean, to your point, got to figure that's right. But Juan, I think this is another good topic here. Mike Dudley, play calling needs to get better. Listen, I wholeheartedly agree on that because when you look at the plays, Brock Bowers did not get targeted nearly enough in this game. Just nowhere close to how much he should have been. What are some takeaways from a play calling perspective that you saw, Juan?
You know, I've been an offensive coordinator forever, and and albeit rec league, you still have the same mindset, and you're basically adjusting to what the defense is giving you. And just because you watch film on 4 or 5 different games doesn't mean that they're going to scheme and do different things for you. So, from a play calling standpoint, again, you can't just go and force the ball to a Brock Bowers or force the ball down the field or force the ball to do things, because then that's when the problems come in. So I think Monken did a great job as far as adjusting, making some adjustments with the line, just making some different changes. I knew in the second half, I was on Facebook and I was just talking to a couple of guys, and I just said, I'm not really worried right now. They're sleepwalking, but they're gonna pick it up and they'll end up winning this game, and that's what champions do. So from a play calling standpoint, you can only do so much. We're spoiled because we have these unbelievable weapons. However, if Missouri, which what they did is they did a great job of taking certain things away. They said, we'll give this up, but we're not going to give that up. And so Georgia was patient, and they eventually came out with the victory.
Absolutely, Caleb. What do you have to say about the play calling, man?
I mean, I don't think it was terrible. I mean, if we don't fumble in the second drive and McConkey don't drop a ball in the third drive, we're up 14-0. We're rolling. It's over. So I mean, I get the play calling blunders. I get everybody complaining about it, but if the players execute, that game isn't close. To be honest, I mean, Milton blew off a big run. Probably the best run our running backs had all season.
Mm-hmm.
Fumbles. That's not coach's fault. Lat McConkey, wide open on a slant, drops a pass, looks down at his hands like, what just happened? That's not on the coaches either. Now, there were some times where I thought we stalled out and the play calling was bad, but for the most part, I think a lot of it was on the players both weeks.
I look at it this way. I think it's a mixture, right? I'm not going to put 100%.
Yeah.
You can't put 100% blame on play calling. However, you also can't put 100% on execution. It's a mix. It's a mix. Now, what percentage? I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and try to give you a percentage. I'm just not going to do that. But it is a mixture of, to some degree, of execution, lack thereof, and play calling could be better, right? Mike Dudley says McIntosh one catch, like things like that. When he's your best receiver, right? Like in regards to the running backs, like you have to get your running backs there. And I agree with that. I think listen, Darnell Washington was a very good plus in my opinion, right? He really jumped in and kind of saved us, if you will. Don Blaylock's another one. Don Blaylock, um, sure-handed receiver, right? We saw. Listen, when I saw that pass to Dom, right? I just knew that was going to be incompletion, and then next thing you know, you see Dom turn around and start running, and you're like, oh wow, hell yeah, right? Like that was an excellent catch, especially in traffic, right? That's the things that we need, right? You're not going to sit here and you're not going to hear me make excuses about receivers, right? You're not. That's not us on this show. That's just not because you're in a situation where you're Georgia. You better have the next man up mentality. I don't want to hear any excuses about we're missing AD right now, this and that and this and that. I get it. I get it. But at the same time, no excuses, fam. None. I don't want to hear it. Next man up. That's what it should be, right? You look at, like I said, Don Blaylock come back and making sure hands, right? We started to see Brock Bowers toward the end, right? Later in the game, start to become a threat and a problem. We should have been using that a lot more, in my opinion, a lot more. But listen, neither here nor there, right? There were some negatives that we could make away, right? Listen, I called it this past Wednesday that Kendall Milton was going to have a long run, and he did. But you got to hold on to the football. I'm not bashing anybody. Don't take that the wrong way. But it can be coached up, right? That's a coaching moment. Listen, always, always, always hold on to the ball. Secure that football, right? It happens. It happens. The play. Listen, that defender made a good play, right? He did. But it's on Kendall and really for the offense, right? Protect the football, right? Because turnover battles that matters. And I think we lost the turnover battle for the second week in a row, yet we were still able to pull out the victory, right? Listen, 2019, this ain't your same Georgia team. 2019, we lost a game when we lost the turnover battle. So keep that in mind, right? Keep it in mind. But if you want to look at the comparisons here, 2021 Bama, last season's Bama, they played a game similar to this and they lost, folks. I know it was a different opponent. They played A&M and lost. But I'm just saying, right? Just because we had a game like this doesn't define us as being out of the running for a national title. So keep that in mind. Because if I'm not mistaken, Caleb, Juan, that Bama team last year that lost to A&M also made it to the national title.
They also had a very similar game against a terrible Auburn team last year on the road. So I mean, it goes hand in hand. I'm not worried about the performance. I was aggravated. Yeah, I mean, we're a different standard. We're national champs now, and we're gonna get everybody's best shot. But I wasn't happy about it. But I mean, a win's a win sometimes. I mean, it's better to win ugly than lose pretty.
So we're getting some chat here. Like in the chat, Mike D is helping us out here. There's a couple things that I want people to understand. Jalen Carter out 1 to 2 weeks per Kirby. So that's going to be a tough blow to the defensive line. We'll talk about it in just a second. But with the loss of Carter comes the return of Javon Bullard. And I think that is going to be a key piece. Listen, Tyke Smith played a damn good game. I'm not going to discredit that. But Javon Bullard is another piece that I think it's going to help his defense. And also, AD might come back this weekend. We'll have to see. I think Kirby's going to not rush anything. I think that's been the mo, and I'm okay with that. But I do want to talk for a second back on just Carter news, right? I'm sure you saw the play, Caleb. I know Juan, you may not have, depending on your travel situation. But if you didn't see it, basically, I think the right tackle basically did a high low block that was not called, by the way. High low block and got, I think it's an MCL sprain, if I'm not mistaken, or what was told Saturday night. Um, Listen, I don't like those plays. I felt like that should have been called, but it wasn't. Um, you know, but with Jalen Carter being out, you're going to have to step up the defensive line. Somebody has got to step up and become that alpha dog in the with Jalen Carter being out. Basically, does anybody want to make a prediction on who that will be?
I don't know just yet, but yeah, I did get a chance to see that play, and it wasn't a dirty malicious play. The guard was actually trying to get out of the way to go to his next man. So I mean, like I said, it's just tough. You got to prepare for those things, and it's no different from when we were playing the Georgia Techs and all that back in the day, where they do that cut blocking and all that.
Them chop blocks, man. These things are terrible.
Yeah, they're bad, but he was not. That was not a that was not a legit chop block, because he was trying to get out of the way. That's probably why it wasn't called on that.
Maybe that was the case. I think it's just in the heat of the moment. In the heat of the moment, it looked bad. Maybe that's what I had to go back and rewatch it. This was some of the tape that I didn't really want to see. Again, it was bad. Um, but I do. Obviously, we're talking about this right here. I think you're going to have to see a guy like Zion Logue step up. I think you're going to see Zion Logue, Stackhouse. One of those two guys are going to have to step up. Those are your older guys. I'm not saying that's going to have to be your best player, but I think that's going to be somebody that's got to step up. I think you have to have that, right? Because you're looking at Stackhouse as probably being the same guy that would replace it. Hop in there. And listen, to the point though, Mike Dudley also said that the D line wasn't bad. We gave up 102 rushing yards, but 91 of them came from two plays. Two. So the explosives, right? We talk about limiting explosive, or Kirby does, I should say. All right, for the most part, if you really look at it, the defense did their job, right? I know you gave up 22 points, but when you look at a lot of that was field goals. A lot of it was field goals, because I think you only had one touchdown, and then the thicker kicker was probably one of the, I hate to say this, one of the better nicknames in college football. Dude's got a fucking cannon on his leg. The thing is just insane.
Yeah, he's like a Janikowski. That's what he reminds you of.
A bigger sea bass, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. In college, when you're 5 for 5, and I think 2 or 3 of them were 50 plus, like, you just have to give him credit for having a damn game. He had an excellent game. Now at the same time, like, you look at what Mike said here, right? 102 rushing yards. Listen, the bend don't break mentality held true, because you limited to field goals. To me, the fact that we were down in the fourth quarter falls on the offense, because your offense put your defense in a bind, right? It's just what happens. But at the same time, we have a thought here too, and I maybe talk on this beforehand. Mitch also says that we spit and sputtered for 5 possessions. We weren't sharp. Mizzou did a good job of staying within their abilities and being disruptive at the line. You're right? And then when we finally got our heads out of our ass, we had 6 straight scoring drives, right? Now, obviously, most of those field goals, but you still moved the ball enough to get into, right? Mitch, to that point, and then I'll start this off, and then I'm gonna let everybody else hop in. Listen, 3 points is unacceptable for Georgia. You need 7, because it's going to come a point in time, especially probably SEC championship game, playoffs, right? That's the aspirations. Before that, Tennessee. You got Tennessee, Kentucky, right? You're going to need 7 points, not 3. Now, to your point, points are points, but you need 7, not 3. You're going to have to get 7 to if you want to be where you want to be in the playoffs, winning the national title. 7 points is that's the only reasonable outcome there in my head. Right? If I'm Georgia, I better score every time, and I'm talking about 7. That's what I want to look like Oregon every game. That's how you win ball games because it's going to come time. Listen, Tennessee can throw up numbers, man. Tennessee can score. If you're scoring 3 and they're scoring 7, the math tells me that you're about to lose that game. So we have to be careful. Now, like I said, listen, we did sputter, and I think you can fix those issues, right? Play calling can figure out those issues, but you have to score touchdowns, man. That's how you win. That's how you win a title. You have to score touchdowns. Caleb, Juan, what say y'all?
I'm still trying to figure out. Honestly, I went back and watched it. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck's going on, especially up front. That's the thing that's getting to me is the offensive line play was terrible until the last 2 drives. And I said it before and I'll say it again. I said it 10 years ago. It was a bad hire. And that reflects on coaching. I don't know.
You're
That's
talking about
really what got on my nerves.
my thing is this: Juan, when in the fourth quarter, when we switched from zone to gap scheme, the offensive line entirely changed. It was just one of those things. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was that schematic change mixed in with some guys saying that, hey, listen, we're about to lose this game. We can't. Nah, hell no, we're too good for that. I don't know what it was. You know what I mean? But at the same time, whatever happened, happened, and I want to see more of that because I'm telling you right now, I'm still like my ears are still ringing from hearing that shot that Kenny Mack laid on that linebacker. I'm just saying because that was physicality. If I'm looking out in this game, that's the type of physicality that I need out of everybody. That's what we're used to seeing at Georgia. When you're not seeing that physicality, when you're getting your ass whipped on the offensive line of scrimmage, defensive line of scrimmage, not necessarily as much, but offensive line of scrimmage, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Yeah, listen here. Calling way too many deep balls, go back to screens and wide tosses like week 1 stuff, right? That shit worked. It worked. You look at what they did. They put 7, 8 in the box, put 2 high safeties. Take advantage of that, right? Take advantage of that. I don't think we did. We tried to take too many damn deep shots instead of taking what they're giving you and force them to stop that and then go about your business, right? I think we were reactive instead of proactive, and I think it about cost us. What would you think about that one?
One of the things that they were not going to do, they basically said you're going to have to dink and dump us, in order for you to be successful. Anytime that you have a high safety, they were playing high safety man under. So they were basically saying you're not going to throw the ball deep. You can dink and dump us. You're not going to run the football either. So, they did a great job, and Missouri's front is actually pretty good. If you look at it, they game plan very well. One of the things I think that is overlooked, though, is the fact that Georgia did make a great adjustment, in game adjustment to win the football game. And you look at it as like that's what champions do. You think about that 2017, national championship, which was a nightmare, but Nick Saban made that in-game adjustment. He went away from what he thought was going to be a successful plan to win it. And I think another thing too that's really being overlooked is if you look at Alabama when they played Texas, when they needed it for that last drive, Bryce Young was able to lead them down the field. They score, they win the game. That is what champions do. That is what everybody is anticipating is going to happen. Well, guess what? Georgia is now in that same boat. Missouri, they had a great game plan. They came out there and they kicked us and punched us in the mouth. But what do champions do on that last drive? They drove down, we win the game, and it's over. And that's what I'm most excited about. And I'm looking at it not as we're struggling and we're doing this. It is champions do what they need to do in order to win the football game. Going back to Kirby's thing, you're either elite or you're not. And an elite program, a team that was lesser, like Missouri, guess what? They're not elite. They were not able to finish what they started. And if they were, now we've got problems. But they're not elite. Georgia is. Texas is not elite. Alabama was. They ended up winning the game.
I want to bring up something right fast because I don't want people to feel as if we're bashing Georgia's performance. There was something that was, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you could have asked for that happened. It was caught on tape. And if what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it play. And then afterwards, for the podcast listeners, I'll explain what it was. You probably saw it. And in my opinion, why I feel like this is the most important moment of the game. So just stick around and watch this. What you just saw, I don't think the audio was there. I don't want to have any copyright issues or anything like that. So just played it with no audio. So what that was, Jamon Dumas Johnson holding Kamari Lassiter accountable. That was the most important thing I saw all night. You can tell me, right, the physicality in the fourth quarter, right, that Kenny McIntosh hit. No, that video right there sums up what I feel like we need to get back to where we want to be. And that's continuing the standard, right? This is a young defense, folks. The young defense, as Georgia fans, all too well what that looks like, because guess what? We saw that accountability literally in the national title game with Nakobe Dean ripping Channing Tindall. But then guess what happened? He held him accountable, and then Channing Tindall goes and makes the play, right? In my opinion, that was the most important pivotal moment for Georgia, and because it's a long-term effect. These guys are young. Jamon Dumas Johnson is a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. Holding people accountable, right? It means your defense is growing, right? You're finding out that leader, right? In my opinion, I'm just saying that right there proves to me that he's running this defense, and it should be that way, right? Now, I'm not saying, because you've got some older guys, right? I don't care what anyone says to me. Holding people accountable and determining, the leadership standpoint right there, that's important to me. Caleb, Juan, I'll let y'all take it away a little bit. I know I'm rambling on about this. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Caleb, I'll let you go.
All right. Well, it's like you said, with the accountability, the leadership. This was another thing that stuck out to me too. Is you a lot of people will take that clip, like you said in the pre-show or before we went live, and be like, "Oh, Georgia's lost the locker room. Georgia's lost the locker room." Georgia never lost its poise. Georgia never looked worried. Georgia knew it looked like they played bad, but it looked like they knew they were going to win the game the whole time. That's what stuck out to me. A young team that never lost its composure. Yeah, they got mad at each other and he got on Kamari Lassiter's ass like he should have. But besides that, they never lost composure. Georgia looked composed. Georgia looked focused. Missouri just played well. But it's like you said, at the end of the day, the leadership, which was questioned coming into this season, stepped up and won a game that we needed to win. That was one positive I took out of the whole thing is Georgia never looked worried, which kept me calm too, because I stress ate a whole big bag of sunflower seeds. I was just chewing them. I wasn't even that going to spit them one by one. So, yeah, man, I think that was the biggest thing, man. They kept their composure, and as the season goes along, that composure is going to get even better. That confidence is going to build back up, and Georgia's going to be fine.
Juan, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Caleb said it the best is where, again, there had to be an established leader. There had to be somebody that just to come up and lead. But what it shows is passion too. And when you've got a guy or a group of guys that absolutely have passion, it looks different. And the attitude is different, and the sense of urgency is different. And he was basically saying, "Listen, man, we all have to be on the same page. We all have to be on the same accord." Why? Because and I'll always say it. Kirby said, "You're either a leader, you're not." And if you want to be mediocre, go somewhere else and be mediocre. If you want, if this is okay, if this style of play is okay, then go do it somewhere else. You're not going to do this here. And that's what it looked like to me is again, just a renewed focus. This is what we need to do. And I need to reset everybody so we can get back to where we need to be.
Listen, I think like I said, that moment right there is going to be pivotal for the rest of the season. I just see that coming, right? Listen, you got a couple games, then you've got a bye week, and then you've got a gauntlet, the gauntlet, if you will, right? And after these two games, you have to start looking at these games as more of a threat than what we had thought coming into the season. Let's be honest. Um, Listen, I think you look at how can I explain it? Right, like what you're facing what an Auburn team at home. You go to Vanderbilt, which I think Mike also mentioned that the Vanderbilt game is also a 3:30 game. No noon kickoffs, right? Which
Thank God.
probably a sign for fans here that it might be happy about that. Um, Fix right the wrongs. This is the perfect time to do it, but don't do it at the expense of a loss, taking a loss, right? Win the game, but fix the issues. I think you have to do that. And listen, I think you know I'm hoping that Kirby's got these guys understanding the fact that listen, I don't care who your opponent is, you have to respect everybody because Missouri was thought to be one of the worst teams in the conference, probably still is, and they punched you in the mouth and about knocked your ass out, and somehow you just came back to and start. You know what I mean? Like keep that in mind. I hope that's a huge wake up call for those guys. Like, listen, we can't come into any game thinking that like we're better than anybody. Go out there on the field, whoop their ass, prove that we're the better team, right? You do that week in, week out. That's how you get back to the playoffs. That's how you compete for a national title, right? That's the Georgia that we're expecting Georgia to play like, right? Don't come in here with your head held high and thinking, oh yeah, we're hot shit, because it's going to look like the last 2 weeks, folks. Right? Not bashing anybody. I'm just saying I hope this is a true wake up call, right? A true wake up call for the dogs moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, I know it's Monday and Wednesday we've got a nice show to preview a game, but since it's Monday, it's Auburn week, and there's two words for you: fuck Auburn. I'm just gonna leave it there. Um, just gonna say that right there. I think not fuck Auburn. Okay, I'm doing it again. Caleb, what are your thoughts moving forward for what Georgia needs to do? Heading into the Deep South Soul rivalry.
I mean, they just got to get back to their dominant way of mind. I mean, Auburn's definitely a team we could beat by 40, and they're definitely a team that we could struggle and just get by, just like we did last week. There's no in between. I don't think we're going to beat them by 14. We're either going to beat them by 100 or we're going to beat them by 3. But I honestly look for Georgia. I look for Kirby to stick his foot in some asses. I look for Georgia to get refunded. I mean, this ain't Missouri we're talking about now. This is a hated rival that we want to smack in the mouth. I think Georgia's going to refocus, and I think Georgia's going to look very good Saturday. I'm hoping at least. And like you
Juan,
said, fuck Auburn, man.
Juan, you played with Kirby in these games. I have a feeling I know where this is going to go. How much does Kirby hate Auburn?
Oh, I mean, he hates them hot, but just like Caleb said, I mean, it could go, one or two ways. And I remember back in '94 when we played Auburn, they were on a 20-game winning streak. I think they were like number 4 in the nation, and we were terrible. I mean, we were absolutely awful. I want to say we were like 4-4, maybe, or 4-5, and we beat them. I'm sorry, we didn't beat them. We actually tied them, and that's when they didn't have overtime back then. But they just thought that was a sure in, just rock them, sock them, beat them, just come out there and just beat us to death, and they didn't. So my thoughts on this game is, listen, I truly believe this is Harson's last year. This is his last opportunity to play against Georgia, and he's going to give it everything he has. He's going to go above and beyond to try to go out on a high note. And what better high note is there than to beat Georgia? So, we got to be ready, just, and just go out there and just do, elite things like we have been doing, and just finish it.
Listen, '07 there was a blackout, right? I want his coffin to be nailed this game. I'm just saying. You got lucky to beat Missouri. Think about that. You lose to LSU and a subpar LSU team. Obviously, listen, week one or year one, sorry, Brian Kelly. It is what it is. You still lost to LSU. Georgia's going to embarrass you. They should. They should. I'm not going. I'm not feeling confident until Georgia shows me what I need to see. However, if this is the week to do it, Kirby Smart, I know you're listening. If this is the week to make a statement, make it happen. And what I mean by make a statement is I want that first drive to be a run down your fucking throat and make Auburn feel like they should have never made the trip. Simple as that. I'm going to save the preview for Wednesday's show, just letting y'all know. However, this is Auburn week. And like I said to start Auburn week, fuck Auburn. Just saying that. Juan, I know there's some Auburn ties for you, so don't take any offense. I hate Auburn. I hate Auburn.
None taken.
I'm glad there wasn't any. That's all I'm going to say. Juan, any final takeaways, my man, from this Missouri game? Let's put this game to bed. I think a lot of people want to do this. Let's officially put it to bed.
Yeah, again, if you just want to see the beauty and the madness or in the whatever, is the fact that, again, when we needed it, we scored and we played some big boy football. We played some you're a leader, you're not football. We are now, if not in the category, maybe even above right now of the Alabamas right now. And so we did what we needed to do to win that football game. And once we as fans start to realize how good Georgia is, even in bad circumstances, then I think that we'll be settled. And so I was pleased at what happened. And again, in certain situations like that where we come out on top, I'll take it all the way. What did you say, Caleb? But we'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss all day.
He's got a point, Caleb.
I'm just going to take it as the king of Facebook, Mr. DGD Pat says. A win is a win, or whatever the hell Alabama said after they beat Texas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's all I got to say about it, man. I'm done with it. I don't want to see it, hear it. I'm ready for Auburn.
Yes, sir.
I'll end it with this. The Missouri game was one to forget for certain reasons. You need to remember that because it could be a lot worse moving forward if you forget the Mizzou game. History will repeat itself. Keep that in mind, folks. And you might be on the bad end of history next time. I'm just going to leave that there. Doing the Lord's work, Pat is. Might not see him, but you did hear it. So keep that in mind. The Make One Laugh Again streak continues. Listen, I just think that there's more positives to take away, right? Listen, I know everybody and their mom is sitting here bashing Georgia, and if you say Georgia got exposed, I think you're wrong there. Listen, Georgia just played down. It's just the way it is. But you cannot do that again, especially with Auburn. You can't do it with Auburn because, listen, I'm glad it's not in Jordan-Hare, right? But I'm just saying you can't play down to them. And I think moving forward, this is a coaching moment that, listen, don't come into a game thinking you're just going to be better than somebody. That shit doesn't work every time, right? People say you got lucky. Nah, I think you did what you had to do to barely survive that game. And as you see in here, Georgia survived that game, right? Georgia is the better team. You just asserted it very late in the game. But other than that, listen, you're 5-0, right? You have the opportunity to continue the undefeated streak, right? Continue to stay undefeated. At least you're not like Oklahoma. Just saying. Good God. That was bad. That was bad, folks. Yeah. If you don't understand, just go look up the TCU score and understand that TCU bodied Oklahoma. Just saying. And Kansas is ranked, folks. Kansas versus TCU has to be one of the biggest Big 12 games this week. And I don't know how to feel about that. I love it. I love it. The Rudes, you haven't been around, but the Lord's work is being done. You're absolutely right. And we'll end it on this comment right here. I think this is a good comment to end this on. Obviously, we've talked about the Missouri game enough. But take away this, folks. The defense is elite, and the offense has to understand that itself, the offense, and how we beat people. We're an outside in team with great outside blockers, right? Referring to the screens and the quick passes, right? We did that for 3 weeks, and it couldn't be stopped. I think our outside blocking is probably one of the better teams in the country with that right there, right? Get the ball in space, get Ladd, I'm telling you right now, get Arian Smith in space. Let him break a tackle and it's over. It's a track meet, right? And to that point, Mike, I want to see some deep shots connect, right? Get Arian Smith healthy, completely healthy, and I just want to see you sling that shit. I just do. I just think that, you know, with the blocking and stuff like that, you've got to make teams respect your deep game, and we haven't connected, and so people are forcing us to to do other things. And in my opinion, they're not. Maybe they're respecting it, but you have to connect on that stuff. But neither here nor there. Listen, Georgia, you're still right in the playoff hunt, right? I'm just saying. Mike D says Arian and screens Auburn call God. God forgives. I don't. No, I'm just saying. No, they can. No, hell no. Fuck them. That's why. Just saying. Listen, I'm telling you right now, folks. Hide this from your kids because all week, both episodes, the Monday show today, the Wednesday show, it ain't for the kids. Listen, this is adult only content for these 2 episodes because I hate Auburn, and I hope you do too because you're a Georgia fan and make the rivalry great again. All right, please. Auburn, do better. Right? Get rid of Harsin. Rip the Band-Aid off. Just saying, hey, Jimbo, you're about to be fired too. Worthless piece of shit, coach. Let the A&M fans hear that. I want them to. Anyways, wrapping this thing up. Caleb, thanks for hopping on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on, my man. Juan, I'm glad you made it back. And listen, I think we got some explaining to do Wednesday with some previews for the Auburn game. Going to give our picks for brought to you by BetUS, by the way. Other than that, though, folks, listen, have a great day. You're 5-0. You're number 2 in the country. All things are not doomy and gloomy, right? Just leaving that there. Rude's hopes that Jimbo gets fired too. Listen, I hope A&M has to pay that $95 million or whatever it is. Listen, he can't fucking coach an offense, man. That shit was 2013. That expired way too long ago. We're getting Juan getting hit on a little bit. Missed that beautiful face. Rude said it. Other than that, the brigade coming in hot, heavy with the questions and comments, the stats to back it up. Other than that, though, guys, let's just end this thing. Let's wrap it up, and let's just call it a day and get out of here like Georgia did in Como. What do y'all say?
Amen,
yes, sir,
brother.
All right, guys, y'all have a great day. Catch y'all back here Wednesday on the next episode of the DG Podcast. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.